One of the biggest projects happening right now at the University of Toronto is the NGSIS Platform Modernization Project. NGSIS is improving the ROSI administrative database with better server technology and a refreshed codebase to revitalize the student information system. Think of the current ROSI system as a single-track gravel road. It can be a slow and difficult journey to implement new services like Acorn and Degree Explorer. But we know ROSI will do a much better job supporting our services when that old gravel road becomes a paved modern highway for student information. After project completion, 15,000 students will be able to access the system via Acorn simultaneously. Currently, Acorn can only accommodate 700 concurrent users at a time. A new codebase will allow for friendlier file management using an interface similar to Windows Explorer. The new platform even opens up the potential for live integration between divisional systems and ROSI. So how do we replace ROSI's roads? By converting ROSI's 2 million lines of code into Java and switching our mainframe to faster Linux servers. Changes to the ROSI interface will be minimal, and we expect staff will find it easy to adapt. This flexible platform will help ROSI evolve into a vast, intricate network and help U of T stay at the forefront of technological innovation. For more information, visit sis.utoronto.ca/ngsis.
Welcome and thank you for coming. This has been a long road. It's been probably about a year and a half that we've been engaging with this project. The next step is really critical. It's a functional perspective. We can't do this without you, and we really appreciate you taking the time even today just to come and learn more about it. We hope this will be done over the next 3 months, and we hope you'll find some time to do this. Donald and I have been here for about a year and a half, giving your perspective from our limited repertoire at this university, trying to really help the project move along, as well as giving some expertise. And you probably heard from us on numerous occasions coming and asking different questions. Donald?
I would just say the whole team has been paying such close attention to the functional aspects of this project, which is one of the reasons why it's been so exciting to be a part of it. The next stage is particularly exciting because this is where all of the functional people actually get to test the system out, and being able to do it thanks to the careful organization of Kelly and Katie putting together what's to come. I just want to say it's not going to be an overwhelmingly difficult project, but having all of you participate is just going to be so valuable. There will be groups of us in rooms working together, which is why if you can do it in person in the room, it would be so helpful, because we'll all be looking at the same screens, testing it with the sorts of test cases that we use on a daily basis. And we're also hoping that just with groups of people who do the same functions working together, you'll think of questions that you hadn't thought about in preparation before coming. There'll be test cases, but it's really going to be incredibly valuable to have your participation in this next stage, which is very carefully orchestrated to be most profitable. I think that's about it, because Philip is going to take over the agenda.
Yeah. So over to Philip Milner. He's the project manager. He's been working on this project for a while, and he'll be heading the UAT testing and move forward. So, Philip.
Thank you, Donald. Tanisha. Okay, so in terms of the presentation today, I'd just like to go over the agenda. So we already started off with a bit of a project overview in terms of the great video Katie and Kelly and Alex and the team put together, that high-level overview of the project. We'll take a look at some roles and responsibilities, high-level schedule, that kind of stuff. We'll then get into the user acceptance testing goals. What are we trying to achieve together over the next three and a half months? We'll go over the high-level user acceptance testing strategy, what the workflow will be from a process perspective. Kelly's going to speak to that. And then we'll have Richard Chow come up, and he'll speak to the user acceptance day-by-day testing plan that he put together. Day 1 this, day 2 that, day 3 that. We'll keep it high level. but rest assured there is a detailed user acceptance testing day-by-day plan, which we'll be looking to get your input on. We'd also like to have a conversation with respect to the UAT communications framework. We know this is a large campus, right? We got UTM, UTSC on the line right now. We have all kinds of buildings around the university. How can we work together and collaborate most effectively over the coming months? Either co-located together in a room, or if some folks aren't able to do that, then using some of the technology available to us. We'll also talk about what it means to be done with UAT. What are our exit criteria, to use test methodology language? Any next steps that come out of today, we have a few in mind that we're going to talk about with you today, but there might be others as well. And then finally, important contacts. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, who should you reach out to? So from a project leadership perspective, up at the top we have our NGSIS executive sponsors. So Scott Mayberry, VP University Operations, and Sandy Welsh, VP and Provost. They're up at the top. We then have the project leadership group. Kathy Eberts from EASI, the director of EASI, is there. I assume everyone in the room knows the EASI group. We also have Patrick Hopewell, the director of EIS. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with that acronym, but that is Enterprise Infrastructure, keyword, Solutions. We have Richard Levin, University Registrar, representing the end user community. We have Bo Von Schneider, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, the University CIO. And then last but not least, we have Mike Wiseman, who is the director of ICEA. That's an acronym for Information Security and Enterprise Architecture. So that's our project leadership group that meets regularly to provide strategic oversight and address any issues that come up. And then in a project management capacity, as Tanisha and Donald already mentioned, I am the project manager of this project. I may have worked with some of the folks in the room on other projects. Mostly at the university, I was in the SAP space. And then we have Frank Bossoff over here, who is the solution architect from that ICEA group as well, and also the enterprise architect here at the university. This group here is essentially our escalation matrix. Should issues arise, either in user acceptance testing or elsewhere, we start with project management, Frank and myself. If we can't resolve the issue there for whatever reason, then we go up to the project leadership group meeting. And over the course of this summer, the project leadership group meets every 2 weeks, so we can get things on their radar relatively quickly. And then up at the top, should it be required, and hopefully not, we have the NGSIS executive sponsors who will address issues that get to that level. So that's our project leadership. Next, I would like to speak to the project schedule. So you can see up at the top, we have the build period. This is only a project schedule for 2018. This project kicked off in January of 2017, the whole Linux version of the world. And the build has been running since. So build is from an infrastructure perspective, from a security perspective, from a development perspective. A whole lot of people put effort into that build period. At last count, I would say probably about anywhere from 20 to 30 people were a part of that whole build period. Running in parallel, I'm going to use Frank's laser pointer. Hopefully it works. See if I can get this going. We have system testing. So you can see that is number 1. So that is our first test cycle. And that has been running since last fall and is wrapping up right now. So you'll see very shortly we're at about 97, 98% complete this first test cycle. And I'll speak to what that test cycle is in a little bit. But I just want you to remember those numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Next up, we have system integration testing, test cycle 2. And that started back in April, was ongoing. And that will be running over the course of the summer. And we're looking to wrap that up in late August, mid-September, somewhere around there. And I'll speak to the details on that to some extent shortly. So that's number 2. We then have performance testing. So you'll recall in the nice overview video, it talked about 15,000 concurrent users. Currently, it can only handle 700. So performance testing is all about this, plus scheduled batch, and I'll speak to that. And then the reason we're all gathered here today, which is user acceptance testing here. So that is scheduled to really start in earnest at some point in June, run over the course of the summer, and we're looking to wrap that up in mid to late September. We then have a whole series of go-live planning and dry runs, starting in September, running through October into November. And what this is about is essentially that we practice our cutover to production. We practice our go-live. Anywhere from 4 to 8 times is our current thinking. So the idea is with each practice of a cutover to production, when that go-live weekend comes in mid-November, it's not the first time we're doing this, right? We are a well-oiled machine, and the idea is that those go-live dry runs will pay off dividends during go-live weekend with a very smooth go-live and movement into the new world operational phase. So that's our current project schedule, and you can see we have 4 test cycles captured there. If we move into the details on those different test cycles, this is test cycle 1, system testing. So this is being performed by the EASI testing team, and the focus here is really all of the direct commands and the batch jobs. So the EASI testing team has created over 1,200, approaching 1,300 individual test cases to provide full coverage of ROSI from a module perspective. Of course, ROSI is really big. To be able to test every single possible permutation of how ROSI is used is obviously close to impossible, but we have created a solid breadth of test cases to get as much coverage as possible. So you can see this image here. This is our testing tool called JIRA, and this is our dashboard. So I use this for management reporting. And essentially, this is testing ROSI itself, direct commands and batch, and it's broken down along the different modules of ROSI. Green is good. Green means pass, right? And right now, we're at about 97 or 98% pass. And you can see the different modules are awards, this first one. Then we get into admissions, registration, convocation, fees assessment, STUFIN or student finance, student accounts. Miscellaneous, this has person, resource, SIS, support or reference tables, I believe they're called. We then have scheduled batch, and we have a little bit of regression here. So the idea is to get coverage across the main modules of ROSI and test ROSI itself. So that's test cycle 1, and we're just wrapping that up right now. Few little things outstanding, for example, basic print functionality. We're waiting for Haroon and his team to release that, and you can see that's captured up here in the orange, which means work in progress, but that's the current status here of test cycle 1. We're now really starting to focus in earnest on test cycle 2. So test cycle 2 is about system integration testing. So this is also being performed by the EASI test team. We don't have quite as many test cases, but we do have good coverage. We're at around 500 or so test cases. And the good news is all these test cases can be used post go live, next year and beyond for future releases and functionality. So this is really about testing the systems or the associated systems, as we call them, which integrate with ROSI. So for example, Acorn, ROSI Alumni, Transcripts, Degree Explorer, ROSI Express, VBRS, SAP for the student accounts folks. And you can see that here, this dashboard here represents Degree Explorer. So we have these dashboards for each different associated system. Obviously, the Acorn one is a lot bigger. They're about 250 or so here. So this really focuses, as an example, on Degree Explorer from a student perspective. I'm not sure if you can read that, of which there are about 10 test cases, and then Degree Explorer Admin, of which there are about 60. So folks like Gay and others were the ones who created this content. And then our QA lead, Mike Wires, creates all these nice dashboards for reporting purposes. So that's test cycle 2, focusing on those associated systems that integrate with ROSI. And this will be performed by the EASI test team at first. And some folks may wish to have, test RXP or SAP or, some of the Acorn functionality, Degree Explorer Admin, as part of their user acceptance testing as well. So test cycle 3 is all about performance. So this is also being performed by the EASI testing. We have a dedicated performance lead who is focusing on these 2 main things. So one is that number 15,000 concurrent Acorn users. So the idea is to simulate 15,000 students logging into Acorn at the same time and executing certain functionality. And no, we don't have 15,000 testers to help us out with that. But fortunately, we do have Mike Wires. I won't point this in your face. But Mike Wires is able to use a tool to simulate that type of a load on this new world ROSI, and then we can monitor it, fix it, and so on, so that the system in the QA environment is performing very well from a performance perspective and can handle those peak periods in production. And then, of course, there is the batch part, right? So we have scheduled batch, we have user-submitted batch, we have all the different flavors of batch, but the idea is to ensure that those key batch jobs that currently might run in 1 hour or 30 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours, in the new world continue to run within an acceptable time frame. So those are kind of the 2 elements of performance testing. Test cycle 3 scheduled to run over the course of the summer. You can see we have our test cases captured here, 10 to 15 or so on, very iterative, but over the course of the summer we'll be doing multiple executions of this. So that's test cycle 3. On to test cycle 4, which is the reason we're all gathered here today, which is user acceptance testing. So I'd like to go over some of the goals. So first up, the goal is to cover an entire academic cycle, 1 year at the university from a ROSI perspective, and cover that within 3.5 months, which will be a challenge, but Richard Chow over here, the man with the plan, does have a vision for that, which he's going to speak to shortly. Also, as you know, that first test cycle, system testing I showed you with the green dashboard, that was the EASI team putting together those test cases in consultation with some of the folks in this room and beyond, and executing those test cases for that first test cycle. But you, as end users, really know ROSI best, and you know your business processes best, or your institutional processes. So we're looking for your input to cover any of those specialized processes that we may not have a perfect handle on. Some of the topics that came up while we were putting this presentation deck together were, for example, graduate supervision, right? That's a very specialized area, apparently. We're looking for folks in this room and beyond to help out in that area. Or final oral exams was another area that we would like your input on. We know Richard reached out to Parisa as well to get some input on admissions, to get a really good understanding of how admissions works, because that knowledge at the beginning of this project wasn't as high as some of the other areas within the EASI project team. We're also looking for folks who have not been testing this for 6-8 months to come in from a different perspective, click in different places, ask what does this button do, things that we might never have covered, right? Different permutations of how things should work, different execution paths which we may not have covered. Next, from a change management perspective, it would be great for you to familiarize yourself with this application and bring in some of your other team members, or as we're calling them, UAT designates. I know Donald got access and spoke with a few of his colleagues over at Innis College and said, let's take a look at this together. You know, let's see what this is all about. So we're looking for that as well. The good news is, from a change impact perspective, we don't see the overall change impact as being particularly high. We've gone through and actually categorized and logged all the different changes as we see them, and the impact of those changes was low to medium at the most. So this comes back to the video and what I believe Donald and Sanisha said about, it's not going to be drastically different in terms of your business processes or the user experience and so on. So it should be manageable from a change management perspective, but we still want to get your input. And then eventually, at the end of UAT, and I'll touch upon this when we get to the exit criteria, we are looking for you to give that thumbs up and say, based on the testing we've done so far, and yes, there might be or likely will be issues that come up post-go live, but we as the end user community feel that this application is ready to in fact, go live. Or as we also call it, sign off. We're looking for sign off. So I'm now going to touch upon the user acceptance testing strategy. So we already covered this first point a little bit, that we're looking to follow the basic flow of the academic cycle. Start off with some person, if you know all these different modules named, then get to admissions, do something in resource, register some students, give some awards, run some stuff in student accounts, audit their degree, and then finally graduate them. So we're looking to follow that flow over the course of the summer. And Richard will speak to that in a little bit more detail. We propose to have themed testing workshops. And we also propose that these take place 3 days a week at first. So whether that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or some other configuration, I'm sure it will be difficult to find a configuration that meets everyone's schedules. Everyone has day jobs and so on. But we're looking to do 3 days a week is what we propose. And this is merely a proposal. We're looking to get your feedback on this. But we think that that's what's required to get this done by the end of the summer and into September. We're looking to have 2 sessions. I've been on projects where user acceptance testing is 8:30 to 5:30 all day, every day, but I don't think that's realistic given folks have their day jobs and so on. So we propose a morning session and an afternoon session. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., 1:30 to 3:30 p.m., and not every single session is going to require everyone in this room and beyond, right? Day 1 might be about person. So that might be a subset of 5 end users, 10 end users, and so on. And then we'll move through the academic cycle, and as we move through, the people in the room together with us will change over the course of the summer. So this is not everyone is required for every single session at all times. You'll see once we get to the UAT plan, we're not going to go through it in detail, but once you see that plan, you'll get an idea of when you or someone from your team will be required. As Donald touched upon, we're looking to be in a room together, to work together and get through the testing. We do have, I believe, 10 to 12 laptops which have been set up so that you can come to room 936 at 215 Huron, and we will be there to support you. Key members from the project team will be there to respond quickly should any issues arise, should you have any questions, and essentially to plan out each day's activities. So that's the vision for the themed testing workshops. I'll move on. At the end, we can open up the mic to any questions folks might have. We're looking for UAT primes or whoever you designate to come to these sessions. So if it's a StuFin day or student accounts, we're going to look to have Audrey, Ruth, and Bonnie potentially in the room with us, and whoever else might be required from a student accounts or StuFin perspective, grad or degree audit or academic audit, likely a different collection of folks. We will be putting together checklists, high-level checklists. We don't have time, and the folks in this room don't have time to create hundreds or thousands of different test cases to cover UAT. So we'll be putting together these checklists for a given ROSI module area, We will then send these to you, and we will look for your input to improve our checklists and make them better. Once the checklists are out of the way, we will then use those testing-themed workshops to work through the checklist with you as we conduct our testing in room 936 together. And then last but not least, we will have the EASI testing team there to record progress in our testing tool, JIRA. So if you remember that dashboard I showed you with all the green and the red and the orange, green is good, green is pass, orange is work in progress, red is there's an issue here. We will look to do something similar for UAT so that management, project leadership group and above, can get an idea of how is the UAT going, right? And we will be handling that part here. That's for the EASI testing. So that's the high-level UAT strategy. Our QA lead over here, Mike Wires, has documented this in a UAT strategy document, which was the basis of this presentation and reviewed by Donald, Tanisha, and others. I'm now going to hand over to Kelly, who's going to speak to the UAT workflow.
Hey, everyone. So this is just a little bit about what I anticipate will happen in the room when we do the testing. A little bit about how the workload will be distributed among staff members, and then a little bit about fun, because it will be fun. I promise some fun. So that's the EASI test team. As Philip said, we've set up testing space. We'll be here at 215 Huron on the 9th floor. We've got a bunch of laptops. So the only thing that testers will really need is their work experience and their knowledge and their e-token. We will also set up which testing will take place on which days, and then once you've submitted your checklists along with the names of the staff members that you think should be doing the testing, I will organize it somehow into some logical format and something that people can attend. It'll all be fine. So when you come, we'll actually show you how to do the test, how to execute the test in a way that makes sense for the overall project and the goals and the recording of issues and bugs. We'll let you know if there are any known issues that are being worked on or fixed, so you don't have to report those things. And you, the business users, you and anybody you identify, will execute the test as per the checklist that Philip mentioned, using Euro divisional data. So you'll be working with your own student body or your own resources or whatever belongs to you as a ROSI user, and your own business processes, which again, we don't know everything. So we're relying on you to bring that knowledge and that experience and to help us figure out if things are working as they should be. So we'll be in the room. So I'll be in the room. Richard will probably be in the room. Mike Wires, the test lead, will be in the room to help you, to support you, to answer questions, to record any issues or bugs that come up that need to be fixed. We'll follow up with you on fixes after they're done. You may need to retest. You probably won't have to come back to the room to retest. You could probably do it from your desk, but we'll figure that out depending on the size of the issue or problem. We'll also do a debrief at the end of each session just to get your feedback and improve things as we go if we need to. We want you to have a good experience. We appreciate your time and your effort and your knowledge, and so we want to make sure that we're executing this as best we can so that the project goals are met and that you're having an okay time. So a sidebar, and this is about fun. So Donald said, we want to get everyone in a room, and if people are there who do the same jobs, I feel like people will talk about their experiences, and it will be a good bonding experience for people doing similar types of work. In addition to that, just regular level of fun, we have some ideas about how to keep people entertained and engaged. I did a ton of registration testing all alone by myself with my earbuds in, and it's not so much fun. So Alex at one point actually mentioned a pinata. So we'll see what the details will be, but some fun things will be in place. Also, there'll be food and coffee, donuts, and hopefully some good snacks and drinks. Also incentives. So one other thing that we talked about was if someone reports a bug, that there could be some kind of prize awarded to that person, or we might do random draws for people that show up. So anyway, it'll be great. That's all I have, and Richard's going to talk to you a bit more about the actual test plan.
Hello, everyone. As Philip has alluded to, we're going to try to take the academic year and kind of compress it into about 3 months and try to get all your processes together. So what we're trying to do is lay out what we can try to do in week 1, week 2, week 3, 4, all the way up to like week 9 or so. So initially what I envision is to start the academic cycle. The idea is we need to get students there. The idea is we will consider batch jobs that will convert students into the next session, and then functions that you might need to handle related to setting up the data according to what's necessary for the student to start off the academic session. That will kind of involve batch jobs, setting up data, so we'll assist in doing that if that's required. Week 2, we involve the course data setup. So the idea is, again, taking a session of your courses, moving it across to the next session, and then you would probably do some direct commands, ensuring that you can add courses, set up how you need for enrollment controls, do some batch processes related to your courses to make sure that you can do in a whole set of data rather than one at a time. We'll look at running some extracts to ensure that the data can go across to the room reservation system if that's what you do your rooming across in, and then having that data passed back onto the ROSI to ensure that it's set up. So once we have the student kind of data set up, we have the course data set up, then we'll spend about 3 weeks handling just functions related to student enrollment, so things that you would do on an online screen, adding students into courses, adding students into programs, wait lists, idea of course approval. So all that kind of things will happen in week 3 and 4. So whether it be comments, adding, all that kind of material, whether it be direct commands on ROSI or online batch, that will be necessary. And then within that, we'll move along to, once a significant number of entries have occurred, we'll do things like marks entry. And then the idea is an academic audit, and then the idea is getting students ready for convocation and graduation. And then we'll have some standalone processes where divisions or those sections can come in at any point in time, which is more agreeable to their schedule. Like Phil alludes to the student accounts area, but also transcripts. They can come in, their function is standalone. It doesn't necessarily impact, they have students in terms of they have to be registered or that. We can just have data come across versus entry in terms of requests being made, but then check on if requests are being printed ASAP or a nightly print or a print based on graduation or so. So we plan to have things scheduled for 9 so weeks. Again, it's all tentative, so as we work through, we might need to adjust it, and that's where part of the communication will come in. If things need to change up a bit because things are taking a little longer or speeding up, we can alert the community towards that as well. But the idea is trying to do everyone's functions, but according to their business process. And as everyone kind of alludes to, if we're grouped together, other areas might find something that another division does a little slightly differently, and that might be suitable for them as well. So hopefully everyone will have some time to be able to participate. Once we get the plan out, then everyone can kind of review it and kind of indicate which areas that they'll have people come and which individuals will be coming. So, and then as mentioned, Kelly can coordinate that, and then once we have all that, we will release it to everyone once the dates of testing kind of commences. Phil?
Thanks, Richard. So Richard touched on a really good point, I think, which is we will be monitoring the progress of user acceptance testing over the course of the summer. And if we see that dashboard, which doesn't yet exist, but you saw one for another test cycle, not going green fast enough, then we may have to adjust our approach somewhat. Maybe we have to increase our frequency to 4 days a week. Or if it's going swimmingly, perhaps we can decrease the frequency and we can adjust. But we'll have to, over the course of the summer, see how things progress and issue any actions as a result. because that September 28th in my detailed project plan, that end date of September 28th is currently carved in stone. So if that has to shift, it's going to have to go up to those senior levels as required. So thank you, Richard, for going through the UAT plan. Now, from a communications perspective, this is just for folks' consideration. We're looking for your input. As already mentioned, we will be tracking the test execution project and bug or defect status within those dashboards you saw using a tool called Jira, which is fairly common in the ITS portfolio. Many project teams use this. We propose that we have a weekly progress meeting with the UAT primes, their designates, in order just to make sure we're all on the same page with respect to our performance to schedule. Any issues that come up that are high priority. So we track these issues using criteria or values of blocker, critical, major, minor, trivial. So in these meetings, we typically tend to focus on the blockers and the criticals and review those as required with those key folks, because you want to get rid of blockers and criticals as fast as you can. And then any other issues that might come up from a risk management perspective or change management that you could comment on in these weekly progress meetings. And then finally, next steps. Any action items that come out of these weekly progress meetings. Okay, we need so-and-so to do this by this date to move the ball forward and hit that late September date. So we propose using MS Teams. I'm not sure if folks here are familiar with Microsoft Teams. In order to be a user, you have to be on Office 365, have already migrated. Maybe not everyone is, but essentially Microsoft Teams is a collaboration and communication tool similar to Slack, but it has Skype for Business built into it. So you can do a lot of calls, screen sharing. We've been using it with Donald and Sanisha somewhat. Given folks are across the 3 campuses, heading to 215 Huron for a weekly, 30-minute meeting might not be the best use of your time. So that's something we're considering. If folks don't have access to Microsoft Teams for whatever reason, we have other tools available as well, including the tool that I'm using right now, join.me. Next, SharePoint, which is kind of part of the whole Microsoft suite. We have a dedicated project SharePoint where we store all of our project documentation. We propose for those checklists that we've spoken to that we will do the same, keep them in SharePoint, and then we can collaborate on them in real time together, or as Microsoft calls it, co-author. You can have multiple people working on the same document at the same time. You don't have to do all this emailing back and forth. So that improves output. And then last but not least, there might be system downtime. There might be a critical defect that we want to alert you to so that you don't encounter it and try to, communicate with us. Hey, I found this defect that we already know about. Just get some good communication going on the different issues out there. Any changes to the workshop schedules, anything that might be relevant for us as a user acceptance testing team. Again, we propose Microsoft Teams because it's kind of, Slack channels. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that technology. But if folks don't have access or that's just not going to work, we could just use good old-fashioned email as well to send out communications and so on. So that's our thinking with respect to a communications framework to support the coming months. And we can address any questions or suggestions or comments on this topic at the end of the presentation. Next up, we have the exit criteria. How do we know that we, as a user acceptance testing team, are in fact done with UAT? Well, Mike, our QA lead, has documented all these, formal criteria for successfully exiting the UAT phase. But in short, we're going to look that all the checklists are in good shape and we're happy with them. Security, authorization appears to be good. Accessibility, usability is passable. I already mentioned the checklists. And then finally, in terms of the defect count and so on, we're happy, and the UAT primes or their designates will sign off and give us that thumbs up in their subject matter area expertise. Next, we have our next steps. So first up, Kelly or someone from the EASI team is going to schedule a whole series of holds on your schedule in your Outlook calendars. So we're looking to send those out by the end of this week, and those might adjust Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 10 to 12, 1:30 to 3:30, different folks at different times. Also an easy task, we're setting up all of the UAT users in our QA environment by the end of this week. So that's with the EASI team. And then we're also going to email you the checklists to you as UAT primes for your review by the end of this week. And we're hoping to get those back a few days later. Richard also mentioned the day-by-day UAT plan. We will also be sending that out, which is not captured here. So really we're looking at the checklists and the day-by-day UAT plan, and we're really looking for your input and feedback to make everything better. So that's what we see as the next steps, or rather those are. So in terms of important contacts, and I will send out, or this presentation deck will be sent out at some point this week, likely once we get through the Wednesday session. So you have me with my email address as PM. We have Mike Wires as QA lead. We have Kelly J as UAT coordinator, and Richard Chow as lead tester, an all-around good guy. So those are the contacts. Those are your initial contacts. If you flag an issue or something isn't working as expected or for any reason, these are the folks to contact. We also have the sis.utoronto.ca NGSIS website. I believe a whole series of updates just went out last week. So that video, amongst other things, I think there's a cheat sheet on there as well, and some other items you might be interested are available on this website. I encourage you and your teams to check out this website, give it a good read, check out some of the documentation on there, and you should be in good shape for the eventual UAT start.